a non-fiction book cosplaying a fiction book.
We are getting naughty here. I've never felt so insulted by a book as a reader.
It is so bad. It's so bad.
I'm usually not somebody who hate reads books, but it's also not every day that the author of your most hated book of recent years releases a sequel. So here we are. I'm talking, of course, about Matt Haig's The Midnight Train, which is the sequel, not sequel, to his smash hit, apparently 12 million copies sold of The Midnight Library. 12 million copies. I still can't understand how that is possible. And I would have never gotten this book if I were not by accident in the bookstore on the day of its release. And yes, I even got the signed copy because, sorry, I'm a basic bitch. And if there's like a signed copy for $2 more, then I'm getting this one. I will not talk much about what made me hate Midnight Library so much. You can watch one of the thousands of videos here on YouTube that will explain to you in great details, some videos hours long, what the issue is with this book. I will just say this. It's a book being praised to high heavens, but if you read it critically, its message essentially boils down to be happy with what you got. You cannot really change your circumstances. And by the way, if you're a woman, you can only be happy if you become a mother. It also handles mental health with the same nuance as a greeting card would, and it's genuinely anti-woman. That's all I will be saying about the Midnight Library. Midnight Train, while I do not have high expectations, I do think maybe there will be a little bit more nuance, because here we are basically just exchanging the female main character with an elder male character and the Midnight Library for a Midnight Train. And as far as I know, Matt Haig does identify as a man. So having here a male protagonist, maybe he will have some more nuanced takes on what it is to be a man the way he did not have when he was writing about a woman. And while I do expect to dislike this book based on the Midnight Library and everything that I know about Matt Haig and his presence on social media and the internet in general, of course, I'm still hoping that I might be positively surprised. Seeing how much praise he got for the Midnight Library, I'm expecting this to just be more of the same. But who wants to read a book that they truly despise? And I'm very happy either way that it is just 300 pages long. So this should be a one day, if not even a one session read. Let's get into reading then. Oh yeah. And I'm always taking off the dust cover. I don't know how you are, but they are pretty, but I do not enjoy holding them when reading. And I must say, it is a nice edition. I still don't feel good about having it on my shelf. I might just turn it around and show the beveled edges. Actually, before I start reading, let me just get insights from the dust detect. When your life flashes before your eyes, what will matter most? For Wilbur, it was his time with Maggie, the love of his life, the honeymoon in Venice, before he threw it all away. Years later, on the brink of his own death, a train arrives. It can take Wilbur back in time to relive his most important moments. Soon he realizes just how much he would have changed. An adventure through time, The Midnight Train is a story of love and second chances from the world of the Midnight Library. That is The Midnight Train. Funny enough, on the back, there are praises for the Midnight Library, as if they didn't find anybody to give praises for the Midnight Train yet. So that doesn't bode well to what I'm about to embark. Okay, now truly, let's get reading. So I just finished the very first chapter. It's worth already mentioning something. So we are following Wilbur and Maggie on their honeymoon in 1974, and apparently it's the most greatest time they ever had in their life. There in Venice, Wilbur then sees a doppelganger of his, which I'm assuming will be the old Wilbur from the future, who then can travel with the train through the past. And on the next page, we are 52 years later. So I'm assuming it will now be where we have Wilbur basically die. Barely 22 pages in, and Wilbur, our main character, just died, and he is now about to enter the train station. It is a very quick read. This took me less than 10 minutes. Some of the chapters are half a page long. We start out in 1974 with Wilbur and Maggie. They are on the honeymoon in Venice, and there in Venice, Wilbur sees a doppelganger of his, which I assumed was him from the future, because with the train that he will be boarding, he can travel through time, see everything that happened in his life. In the first 20 pages, we learn that Wilbur had some trauma back in in his earlier years, I'm assuming from his childhood, and he destroyed his marriage apparently. Maggie is calling him after she had a dream about him, and they chat for a moment. He then tries to find the letter that she wrote to him where she broke up with him, telling that he's broken, she can't fix him. They were married 20 years on paper, as he said, but it ended long before that. So I guess his trauma destroyed the marriage. He was a bad husband. His wife left him because he was broken, and he is talking about how he really regrets everything. I'm assuming now we will go on this trip with the midnight train where we will be going back in time to see what happened. And we'll see if this is like a proper time travel story. Will we have something like with a grandfather paradox? Will he try to do some stuff? Will there be butterfly effect? At the station, you met Agnes, who I'm assuming is the train conductor or at least the ticket master or something. I will get back to you after I read more and have something to say again. Okay, I'm just one chapter further along. And up until now, this book was written. Okay, suddenly it really took a dive. We are meeting Agnes. I mentioned Agnes apparently is, yes, she's a ticket master and she is from Wilbur's past. She is the book owner from a store that he was frequently going to. Prose just took a real deep dive. She's over-explaining. She's telling him, I am a ghost, but not an ordinary one. I am here to be your guide through your life. And then she says that she is Agnes in the prime, that she's Agnes that knows everything about the universe. And Wilbur is always asking how she knows everything. And then she tells him that she is a ghost over and over again. The train is something that everybody goes through. Everybody who dies will go on a travel where they can see their lives and assess if it is a good life or not, so that then their eternity will be good or not. It is there for everyone to understand their life. And this is all just flat out told on the page. She is literally just telling it to Wilbur.
Just barely 20 pages away from when we first met Wilbur on his honeymoon in Venice. He's seeing himself being young in the reflection of the window in the train, and he tells out, I am the age I was when I was on my honeymoon. I'm 29 years old. This is like Netflix, basically telling the viewer what is happening over and over again in case you dual screen it or something. We just read this 20 pages ago. We know it was 1974. They mentioned it is 1974. They mentioned that he looks young. And now he's also flat out saying that he looks like he was in 1974 when he was young on the honeymoon. Like, this book is thinking the reader is an absolute idiot. So there's this rule for Wilbur that he is only allowed to look. He can't interact with anything. He just came back from his very first excursion where he saw himself as a baby, where his mother was struggling to raise him and his brother while the dad died in World War II. So he is not allowed to interact with himself. And there's one huge rule that he must never be there when he falls asleep. So those are the rules for him to be granted eternity after the whole process. And my assumption is that he will mingle with his past to hopefully change it so that he lived the life that he wanted, didn't have so many regrets now that he's died. And I think that's where the conflict will be happening from. This book, as it's written, it went downhill from the first 20 pages. It really thinks that we are stupid. It over repeats over and over again everything and makes it very clear that it's not trusting the reader. So let's see if this is continuing on or what it will be going on forward. One thing actually that I liked is that the train is the metaphor for seeing your life flash by when you die. So he is he must look out of the window because that is the way that he is to look at his life and remember it and I guess assess the quality of life before he is allowed to enter eternity. And that's one bit actually I liked. It is a little bit on the nose, but I liked the train being the metaphor for seeing your life flash by the way a train flashes through a scenery and you can look out of the window. We are just at the point where Wilbur meets Maggie for the first time when they were teenagers, and he tells her that he wants to be a writer. And then they are talking about how great writers are, and that Marilyn Monroe was married to a writer, even though she could have had Elvis Presley or Rock Hudson or Marilyn Brando, but she chose a writer. So this is basically just Matt Haig saying how great writers are. And I can't be even mad at him because I'm a writer and I also enjoy books about writers, and yeah, I think we are great. So that's one cheeky point for Matt Haig, but still quite self-indulgent. Yet this I find actually quite charming. I guess we are starting to see a little bit of the trauma now. Wilbur, at the time where he meets Maggie, goes back home, and then we are introduced to the mother drinking. And now she apparently starts drinking more. Normally she was apparently only drinking on her off days, and now she's also drinking before her shift starts. So I guess this is one of the bits of the trauma. Like, father died in World War, mother is drunk. We'll see how much more we will be putting on Wilbur to later on, I guess, explain away his character flaws or things that he must learn or his reasons why his marriage broke. I'm expecting this to all build up to create a Wilbur full of reasons for why he behaved the way he behaved. We got a little bit of stolen valor. We have here just a quote from Kierkegaard: "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards," which basically it is this story, right? And I'm torn on stuff like that, where yes, the quote makes sense, but on the other hand, also like you're just using this quote because it's the simplest way to get the idea of the theme through to the reader without having to do the work. So I'm torn on this one. And we are now at a chapter where we are meeting Charlie. I guess it was Wilbur's best friend. And we also learned later that Wilbur blew it. So another person that had a relationship with Wilbur, and then that relationship ended because Wilbur did something. So yeah, it's page 64 right now. Just chugging along. We are meeting Charlie right now, best friend. So I guess in a few pages we will finally learn what's so terrible about Wilbur that all his relationships have to end at some point because of him. I think we just had our first save the cat scene here for Wilbur, because so far we are only just told that Wilbur is doing something that ruins his relationships, but now we have a scene where he has a close relationship, or at least a warm connection with an unhoused man, and helping him out with some cash, letting us know that he likes to do that whenever he can. So yeah, we are trying to build up some sympathy to Wilbur here. So I'm very curious to know what it is that he really did that destroyed everything in the end. It definitely works on me to build the anticipation to see what it was that he then probably will want to fix, which then will break the rules and he might destroy the eternity system or whatever it is. We are still not sure how life after death fully works after the train. So that's also an open question yet, but I'm assuming whatever it is that Wilbur did, we will undo, and now we are building up sympathy for him so that we feel that it is okay that he risked everything because we like him. We continue to be just told what we are to think and how characters are. Like, we have a rather cute scene between Wilbur and Maggie where they are 16 years old and they're just teasing each other, flirting a little bit. According to Wilbur, his older ghost, this is the moment where the relationship started somewhat, but they didn't know it yet. And then they're talking and suddenly we have, this is Wilbur in the story. He paused and stopped being a clown. Something about her face encouraged honesty. Yeah, but something about her face, like, this is lazy writing. And I get this, that this is like not the point of the story and this is not supposed to be like some literally masterpiece, but this is the stuff that takes me out of the story. It was a cute scene. I like the back and forth between them, and then we are just being told like, oh, there is something. I, as the writer, am unable to write about this, to explain it in another way, so I would be just telling you that there is something in her face that makes people around her be honest. You get what I mean? That's clumsy writing. In the scene where they're 16, they also talk first time about Venice. So Maggie tells him that she wants to go to Venice. It's a dream of theirs. So it makes sense. Like, we saw them from the very first scene that they had a honeymoon in Venice. Here, when they were 16 already, they were talking about wanting to go to Venice. Apparently, they married in the late 20s. So that's a cute bit. And then he says to her, after she says that she goes to Venice, he says, one day you will, and it will be the happiest time of your life. And again, like, it's so cheesy, because like at the beginning of the book, they told us it was the happiest time of their life. And now we are going, like, I get that it's supposed to be cute, but for me, it's just like, really? Come on. A little bit too on the nose, don't you think? And I don't know if this is just me going in with this mindset that I will probably not be the biggest fan of this book, or if I would have had the same feeling when I read another book. And I think I would also have the same feeling, because like, this is always something that trips me up when something is trying to be too clever, too cute. So yeah, it's not just a book, because I'm now 77 pages in, and so far it is way more acceptable than The Midnight Library. I'm not going so far as saying that it is a very good book or anything, but there's actually a story going forward, because we are following mainly Wilbur. So there's a built-in story, not this episodic way of disconnected stories like in The Midnight Library. Here we have some life going from the beginning till the end, so it makes more sense, and there is not so much preaching yet. But again, only page 77. The book is 300 pages long, so we have still a way to go to see if the preaching will come or not. So we just had a short scene where we were introduced to Alice, who was a girlfriend of Wilbur. So Wilbur was a ladies' man before he was actually with Maggie. Here we also learned that he is getting a full scholarship to Oxford, and he's telling it her right before watching a movie. And unlike the previous Save the Cat moment, here we are showing that Wilbur can also be a dick and not read the room properly. So he tells her that he's going to Oxford, and then of course she's hurt because, well, she's moving away, so they can't see each other. And he dismisses it by saying that he will try to come by and that she can come, and yeah, apparently they break up shortly after that. So we are being fed all the reasons why Wilbur is turning out the way he is, but then also being shown a little bit step by step who he is and what his issues might be and why everything fell apart. That is nicely built up. Oh, we're just being told in a sentence that Wilbur's brother turned into being a gangster. Like, yes, there was a scene earlier where we learned that he was quick to steal something from a store, but there is a big jump between petty theft in a store, like stealing a book or candy or something, and then being called a gangster by your own brother. Never saw this. It's just being told in one sentence here. Again, to show that Wilbur has a tough past, because we are using his gangster brother as a reason for why he had to escape from his life to Oxford, I'm assuming. Okay, we just reached the scene where the ghost Wilbur tries to be seen by the past Wilbur, because apparently he's about to enter his crisis years. Whatever made Wilbur the person he is, who destroys relationships when he's older, is about to happen. What will it mean? I don't know. But it will be something, I guess, in Oxford where he is studying. So that is something that we will hopefully learn soon enough, and then things will make more sense how Wilbur destroyed his own life and his relationships. We just met the first other dead person on the train, which is Miss Graham, Wilbur's old English teacher. I think English teacher, right? Yeah. English literature teacher who encouraged him to write and who's the reason that he went to Oxford. And apparently she had 700 stops with the train, but other people only had 3. So yeah, it depends on who you are and how able you are to assess your life. How long you're on the train until you are able to join eternity depends on how well you can assess your life. It can be fast or slow, but it's interesting. Like, yeah, didn't know that there can be other people on the train as well. Now we know. Oh, Miss Graham tells Wilbur that there might be actually a possibility how he can influence his past as a ghost, because eternity with the person you love is nothing compared one day living with the person you love. Yeah. So does that mean that eternity is just a figment of one's imagination, as you are not actually meeting the person, the real person in eternity? So everybody has like a copy of the person that they love. And if so, is the eternity copy then only based on what you think of the person? I would imagine an all-powerful eternity could actually copy the real person. So then if you had forever with the person that is a 100% copy, is there still a difference between them in the eternity or them living? But that's not being explained. Maybe it will be explained later. We'll see. So we just entered July 27th, 1964, which is apparently the day where it happened. The thing that changed Wilbur's life. We'll see what was so terrible that he had to escape it. He's on a concert of the Rolling Stones, he and his brother Dougie. So apparently Dougie was 6 weeks in prison for stealing forks and knives from one of his jobs. So I guess that's the type of gangster he is. So Maggie was also in the concert, and yeah, Wilbur also told Dougie that he's going to Oxford College, and Dougie didn't take it well, thinks that Wilbur thinks he's better than everyone else and that he wants to become a Southerner. Dougie and Wilbur are from the north and they're looking down on the Southerners. There's like this north-south divide in the UK, right? So Maggie has a boyfriend, at least a date, that she came here with to the Rolling Stone concerts, and Dougie acts like a dick around him. Okay, so we are still at the Rolling Stone concert. Maggie came with Tommy, boyfriend, date, whoever it was, but apparently Wilbur did not really like it and he was a little bit of a dick. But then Dougie completely flipped out and pulled a knife, started slicing around, and they started beating each other up. Dougie mainly started beating on Tommy, the date of Maggie. Then friends of Tommy came, everybody started fighting, and Dougie cut somebody with his knife. And I guess that is the start, that is the chaos that ensued. And we are on page 106 right now, so a third down the book, and I guess this is the moment where everything got worse. And at this moment where we are right now, they are running away from the concert, from the story Rolling Stones concert, and being chased by the group of Tommy and his friends. Okay, so they're running out of the concert right on the street where police is waiting, and Dougie, the brother, still having the knife in the hand. They are just running past the police, and somebody is screaming for the police to stop them because Dougie has a knife. Now they jumped into Dougie's car, which apparently was close by from the emergency exit that they run out from the concert, and now having a chase with the police who are trying to catch them. Okay, let's do a little bit bigger of a recap what we have. I'm on page 118 right now. So far, the story is better than the Midnight Library. I had said earlier in the snippets here and there that just by the structure of the story that we are not having just those episodic parts ripped out of the different lives of the main character, but we are following the story from start to finish, we have more chance to not just be preachy, but to basically follow a story. The story itself so far is quite shallow. There's like not that much going on. More will happen now. I'm currently at a story where a brother of Wilbur dies in a car accident. So Dougie, after the Rolling Stones concert, got a little bit crazy, was running away from the police. They jumped into the car. They had a chase. And then while Wilbur tried to struggle with Dougie to stop the car, he was trying to press the brake from the passenger seat. A rabbit jumped onto the road. Wilbur screamed, and then Dougie just swerved the car around and they hit a tree. Wilbur, trying to reach for the brake, somehow twisted him in a position that gave him a chance to survive. He just fell unconscious, but Dougie was thrown out the car and instantly died. So this is, I'm assuming, the big tragic incident that will follow Wilbur throughout his whole life, and which then will make him the person that others want to abandon. I don't see it yet. Yes, it is a tragic event that he was in a car chase with the police when his brother died, but I still don't see the connection how this apparently completely changed everything about Wilbur, because the book is written like it is something that Wilbur himself did wrong. But he did not react in a completely crazy way that you would think made the situation worse than it was. It was all Dougie. And yes, it is a traumatic event, I'm assuming, to be in a car crash and lose your brother. But I still need a little bit more of understanding actually what will be the downfall of Wilbur. Because right now we are only just being told all over and over that something is happening and that it is the reason why it turned out in Wilbur's life the way it did. But I have not really seen anything here yet. For now, if there is something preachy about the story, it is that you should be more observant of the people around you and care for their feelings. I'm fine with this being the lesson, but not much substance in over 1/3 of the book so far. I need a little bit more right now of the story to have something worth talking about, if that makes sense. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it will completely turn around now. Maybe I'm underselling the trauma that he will be living through, but the way it is described here, it does not seem as terrible as what we are supposed to think that it is, if it makes sense. The narrator is not describing the impact that the death of the main character's brother had in enough detail for us to understand why the main character now thinks at almost 90 years old that he became the type of person that hurts others because of that situation. But it also just happened when I'm reading here on page 117. We still have almost 200 pages left. We will see what that means for Wilbur, his marriage with Maggie, how it breaks out. So let me get back to the book and see you in like 50 pages or so. So then after Dougie died, Wilbur decided to not go to Oxford University, to stay with his mother, who started drinking more, taking Valiums, and he stayed to make the life not even more difficult on her, to not abandon her as well after her first son has died. Oh wow, the mother is putting the blame on Wilbur that Dougie died. Wilbur shouldn't have taken it out, shouldn't have gone with him to the concert right after Dougie came out of prison. And then she told him also that he was a burden since birth, because the father died in the war and then he was a baby and she had to take care of Dougie and the young Wilbur. And now she just told him that he was a burden all his life. That's gonna sting if when your mother tells you this right after you witnessed your brother dying in a car accident next to you, after you couldn't do anything to save him. So just one chapter after the one where Dougie died in the car accident, Wilbur already is connecting everything and saying like that Dougie's death had killed his mother too, how it had also killed him, or at least part of him. One chapter after, he's already talking about the effect that his brother's death has on his mother and himself. This is the type of writing that I feel really make you think that the author thinks writers are stupid. I hate it when writers are underestimating the intelligence of the reader. Like, people can infer things, people can understand things, they don't have to have everything spelled out. We see here in this writing that Matt Haig is somebody who sees himself as being like a self-help personality, and he can't stop himself from laying out the lessons in the most plain way possible to make sure that you are getting what he is trying to put down, which makes this an annoying read, because whenever you just start to get into the story in any way possible, because the writing here can be quite engaging. Like, it is written in a way where you do want to turn the page to see what's going on, because we have all the time this slight mystery box. Now we know that the mystery box was the death of Dougie, so we will see what the next one will be. But it kept the momentum that you wanted to know what was happening. But then it happened, and right after, without giving us any time to process it ourselves, Haig is laying it out for everyone to read. Yes, Dougie's death was tough. The mother blames the younger son for the death of the older son. She blames also the younger son for her tough life because she was alone after the father died. And now that the older son is dead, the mother also basically is dead, and the younger son also lost part of himself after his older brother died. Those are all clear things that you do not need to let the reader know in such a direct way. And it makes me feel stupid having to read this, knowing that the author thought that I have to read this or I will not get what the point is of the thing. And the point is so shallow that making me realize that he thinks I need to know this is really making me hate reading this. But let's go forward. Maybe it is just a dip in the story here. Now we had like this big event that we were talking about for a third of the book that it will be coming. I still don't see how this will have effect on his future, because he's not even yet with Maggie. So he never like confronted his issues. Is the lesson learned that if something bad happens in your life earlier, there is nothing you can do to remedy that you will always be broken, and no matter what you will do with the rest of your life, your past is having an influence on everything that you are doing and you cannot escape this. I do hope that this is not the lesson that we are supposed to learn from this book, because that would be quite depressing and frankly a waste of paper. But we have 180 pages left. We are 120 down. So let me see where this is still going and if this is truly what the moral of the story is supposed to be, which I hope is not the case. Again, I'm just 2 sentences further. And now in the next chapter, we already learned that the mother checked herself into a psychiatric hospital. So I guess she had a breakdown after the death of Dougie. Things are moving along quickly and are very bold in just telling us how terrible now are. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, now the train stopped again, and we are with Wilbur on a 13-story high building, contemplating to jump. Like, I am missing in the story the connection that Wilbur had with his brother Dougie. Where was this connection throughout the story that now he is so affected by his brother's death? I don't want to sound like a dick. I do see, of course, that being in the car when your brother died is a traumatic event, but you need to give me something in the story to make me realize that your brother meant so much to you. He was talking about how Dougie was a gangster and that because of that he had a tough life and that he was basically good for nothing. And then now he's mourning him so much that he is on a high rise contemplating killing himself, even though he says also in the same sentence that he knew always that he would not jump. He just needed to feel like he could end it all in this moment. Like, before the death of his brother, there was no nice word left about him. And now he is so far gone that he is close to suicide due to his brother dying in an accident. The jump from one to the other is way too extreme, and it makes me think we are just supposed to now feel for Wilbur without having put in the work for us to be part of his emotional journey. And also, they were like, we earlier were shown that Wilbur is a little bit of a selfish prick, that he was telling people about Oxford, that he didn't care that they would be sad that he's leaving. But then now he dropped it all after his brother died to stay with the mother, to make her feel better that he is not leaving. Where was the transition to this? We didn't get the evolution. I think that has to do with this, the way this book is written in so short chapters. The chapters are general, like most chapters are 2 pages long, and then we are jumping to the next thing, and then we are in the train, and then we are out of the train, and then we have a thought about something that happened and that made Wilbur feel sad, or he's telling us that he doesn't deserve love, or that he broke everyone's heart. The mosaic of little tiny stories, but nothing connect fully, which makes it difficult for me to have an emotional investment into Wilbur, because I don't see him doing much. I only see him saying me what I'm supposed to feel. And then we have situations where he's on a high-rise contemplating suicide, and I'm like, where's this coming from? Why are you so affected by your brother? You had the chance to give me at least one chapter where we see the love between you and your brother, and to see how affected you would have been if something like that happened. I wanted to keep it all hidden so that it comes as a shock, but now, because we didn't see the relationship really grow, it makes it tough for me to understand how important this relationship of Dougie was to Wilbur. If this is now going to be another 200 pages of him just being sad and wallowing about the death of his brother, then I might not be able to finish this in one day, because I will not be making myself read this in one setting. Listen to this. It was true that he needed to stay to be near his mother, but there was also something else enclosing him, a tight claustrophobia, as though he didn't aspire to anything anymore. He would have swapped every dream to have Dougie back, so the dreams had lost their power. Where is this? We did not get this love between Dougie and Wilbur, that now he can't dream anymore because his only dream is to get Dougie back. I did not get this anywhere in the first 100 pages, that they had like such a close relationship. He was talking down on Dougie, and he was very much looking forward to going to Oxford and trying to escape his lower class life. And the weird thing is, we are following the old Wilbur, who is looking at everything in hindsight. And he even didn't tell us. He only inferred that he reacted wrongly and that because of him, relationship broke up. But even he was not giving us positive sides of Dougie. Only after the death again. This is because I think it was more important for Haig to have this surprise, or maybe even shock, that Dougie would die, than to give us insights into the relationship. We are again just one chapter later, and this was probably like my favorite chapter so far. The way I just complained that things are moving along and we are just being said what we are supposed to feel, and things have no build up. In this case, this, I guess, was a good thing, because now we have Wilbur being in the bookshop that he was working part-time, and he was late and got almost fired, but then could convince the owner, Mr. Bagdale, to give him another chance and possibly even turn his part-time work into full-time work, and he felt ambition for the first time in a year. Yes, this is actually something that was for once enjoyable to read, because he felt confident, and we were learning about the younger Wilbur through his actions. The old ghost Wilbur did not interfere in anything. That he didn't say anything. He didn't let his feelings guide the story in this moment. It was young Wilbur take the lead and trying to live a life worth living now, even after he decided to not go to Oxford, knowing that he will regret this probably for the rest of his life, but that doesn't mean that his life is over. If this is now the turn that we have, then that will be a lot easier and more enjoyable to read than if we had just wallowed further along in the story that we had prior to this one chapter. But again, since this switched from one chapter to another, I wrote that this can switch back again, and I really need to stop interrupting myself and just give it 20-30 pages before I say something again, because like things are moving along fast here.
So I'm on page 147 now, and we just had another chapter with Wilbur and Maggie, and those are the most enjoyable chapters so far in the book. I think the relationship with Wilbur and Maggie, while a little bit superficial, is the best constructed relationship in the story. So they met on the cemetery. She went to visit her dead mother. He went to visit his dead brother. And then they just started chatting a little bit, and they even kissed at the end, even though Maggie is in a relationship. Yeah, they did so because Wilbur told her that he feels safe with her, and those are the moments he cherishes the most. After the ghost, the old Wilbur, whispered this into his ear. So the young Wilbur heard the old ghost Wilbur. So ghost Wilbur is changing the past. He's changing the past, but he also is not changing the past, right? Because it happened already. So back in his life, the older Wilbur already, like, time travel stuff is always a little bit here and there and circular, but if you go with it, it shows that the dead Wilbur can manipulate the present Wilbur or the past Wilbur as you want to see it. So I'm assuming there will be more happening here where he will probably push things a little bit further. And maybe we will also break out of the circle where then he will push it so far that the relationship between Wilbur and Maggie will not end after 20 years. I don't know what this will mean for the story. I don't know what this will mean for Wilbur's chances at eternity, if we will find some clean solution to the issue. Yeah, we are now at a place in Wilbur's life where he is a manager at the bookstore because the owner stepping down. He could bring on his buddy Charlie, who was just bubbling through life, and he's trying to straighten him out now. So he's in a good place of his life right now. And I'm just assuming that there will be something terrible happening soon again, because the way old Wilbur is looking at the time, he's still very wallowing and he's still in a depressed mood and he's still worried about all the people that are leaving him. So I'm assuming this happiness is short-lived. He got kissed by the love of his life. He is best friends with Charlie. He has a job. He's a manager. He is content with his life. He accepted that he is not an Oxford graduate. Life so far is okay for him and he's happy. So it can only go down, because this is the type of book that will get you down to then try to force feed you some kind of lesson again, I'm sure. Give me another 20, 30 pages. Let's see where we are ending up. Okay, I just continued reading. And in the next page, what I said just now was confirmed I was wrong. I thought when old Ghost Wilbur said something to the past Wilbur, that this was always had happened before, because like at the very start of the story, we had Wilbur see himself in Venice. So then I assumed that everything that is happening already happened before for his life, right? And in the cemetery, when he was whispering in his ear, which then led to him say something nice to Maggie, which then made her kiss him, I thought this also happened in the life of the old Wilbur before he died, that this was their first kiss. But now Agnes tells him in the very next chapter, something got through and she kissed you years before she actually kissed you. So this was a first time. So old Wilbur did not have the experience that past Wilbur now had, where Maggie kissed him in the cemetery. We are now in a new timeline. Old Wilbur does already have a change on the past Wilbur. So what I just said, that I'm hoping that there will be some effect and we will get something, is actually happening now. So that actually intrigues me quite a bit. That actually is something that I was hoping would happen. I actually I was expecting that he will try to interact with his past. The case is that he is already changing the past now from the train after he has died. And we will then see how this is affecting him. So maybe we are already on a course that will then change everything about the rest of his life. But then what was the beginning of the book when they were in Venice, where he saw his ghost, but then he still lost Maggie, right? So are we now in a third timeline? Or did Haig just not think about what it would mean for the story if the now dead Wilbur already had an interaction with his ghost before he then could go into the past and interact himself with his past self? You know what I'm seeing? Unless he figures out a way to explain this is basically a plot hole. It was not thought through. That's why I was confused in this moment, and I thought that he is unable to change the past because he already was visible in the past, but now we are being told that he already changed the past. So this is the issue with time travel stories, that you need to be aware of every change that you are making and every timeline that you are in. And right now, I think there is an error in how the timelines are working. I do still have half of the book left, so we will less than half of the book. Let's see if he can figure it out, or if this was just an error on the side of Matt Haig, which then led to my confusion. Let me continue reading on, and then we will see. And I suppose, Wilbur, the sad thing about human beings is that to belong, someone somewhere always needs to be shut out. And I think that was me. That's a nice sentence. That is Maggie talking about her feeling left out in London. She took a job in London, which then stopped the blossoming relationship between Wilbur and Maggie, because, well, she was in the north, she was then in the south of London, but she came back because she felt uneasy in London and felt like she didn't belong. And apparently her boss also tried to get with her. She denied him, and then he started stealing her ideas and selling as his own. So she came back. I like the sentence. To belong, others need to be shut out. Otherwise you can't feel like you're belonging to it, because there needs to be a connection between people that you belong to that other people do not feel. So they are shut out. That's the strongest sentence of the book for me so far. But the pages past 150, where the relationship is blossoming, we had just Wilbur confess to himself that he is in love with Maggie. Those are cute. I like those. I hope they will be going forward a little bit more before things get bad again.
Love is meaning. Love is one's contentment to be dependent on someone else. I told you, like, those pages right now are very cute. I enjoy those quite a lot. And they are not preachy. They are nice. They are written simply, straightforward, no drama. It's cute. It's cute. Yeah. His mind had always been racing since Dougie died, like a sentence without punctuation. Maggie gave him the commas and the full stops. It's cheesy, but it's cute. But I worry. It's going too fast. The relationship is getting too close too fast. I think there is not much more courting happening, so I'm expecting things to get bad really soon again, where then Wilbur will actually become the bad person that we are being told that he became later in life. And here we have it. Things are about to, I think, break down. It was there, even here in his happy years, that feeling of not being adequate, of not being able to bear what was really going on inside him. So Wilbur is already sowing the seeds that things are coming slowly back to surface that he tried to hide. I don't like that this is just being flat out told to us, but it is what I'm expecting from the book so far, so yeah, we'll see. Here was just a second summary chapter again, basically, where we are jumping through a lot of time in just one page, and I think those give the story a lot of character, because we are only focusing on single scenes in the life of Wilbur mainly, and then we have those summary chapters which just go like, we went on double dates, we went traveling, she bought a ring, he proposed in one of those summary chapters. It was not a full scene even, because that is not so important for the characters' inner development and feelings. If the chapters that are focusing on particular parts of the life were stronger and not so telly, I would appreciate those scenes even more, but those have the most character, even though they say the least. The Landscape of Life is the chapter name, and it really feels like it. It's just a collage of things that happen in life, be it something completely mundane, like having to work long a night or going on a double date, or something big, like going to the jeweler and getting your engagement ring, all just in a page worth of text. Those give the story character that the book in itself otherwise is lacking quite dramatically. Having the proposal to the love of his life in a summary chapter, ending just yes, oh, Wilbur, yes, without any fanfare, without any descriptions, without any build-up. If this would be taken throughout the entire book, where we are not feeling so dumb because the author thinks that they have to spell out everything for the reader all the time, it would be a much stronger read than it is currently. In the next chapter, it is actually directly addressed that some bits that don't seem so important are lingered on, and then the train through other parts is just rushing through. And Agnes is saying, well, the midnight train lingers for as long as it needs to, and sometimes happiness has the least to teach us. Which absolutely makes sense, right? If you are like happy and everything's going well, there are not many lessons that you can learn from that. Usually lessons come from the things that you do not enjoy. So just wallowing in the good times, if you are on a quest to learn about yourself, will not help you that much. So it makes sense that those chapters are kept very short and we are only focusing on the tougher parts. Now we are getting into the over-explaining territory again. 3 pages already we are talking about how the good parts are going by too fast, and then we are going to the bad parts, and Agnes telling Wilbur that it is his subconscious telling him that this is what he needs to know to learn who he is, or who he was. And yes, I'm getting it. Come on, move on, please. That's what I mean. Some bits, especially again, going back to the summary pages, like they just are there for us to accept as readers, to fill in the blanks of the entire story from just one sentence. And then we have 3 pages just explaining something that feels so obvious, but which Matt Haig clearly thought, okay, this is an important thing. My readers need to know that this is a lesson I want to teach them, that you are learning your lessons from the bad times, and the good times, they just pass by and they are not worth looking back onto if you want to become a better person. And then he talks about this 3 pages long, bringing the entire story to a crawl and making you suffer through his explanations in 3, 4, 5 different ways on the same page. At least now we are getting to Venice, so now we are back at the start of the story. So we'll see how this now works with Wilbur being seen by the past Wilbur and everything, and if there actually was a mistake in how the time travel was described like 50 pages ago, or if they figure out a solution to the issue that I had. And now we are right back into saying us everything that we need to know. Like, we arrived at Venice, and then Agnes is telling him, and as you know, just because nothing happened the last time doesn't mean that couldn't be changed. And if your past changes, there will be no afterlife, no ghost of you, no eternity. Do not dilly-dally when you hear the whistle. Do you understand? Like, yeah, here more than anything, it is important that you do not speak to yourself. You said it was on your honeymoon that you saw yourself. As you know, just because nothing happened the last time doesn't mean that couldn't be changed. And if your past changes, there will be no afterlife, no ghost of you, no eternity. Oh my god, yes, we get this. You told us. I have no idea how many times already, like 5, 6 at least, throughout the story, and another 3 times in this one chapter. It's so frustrating. There is a good book in this, but Matt Haig is keeping it chained in the basement for some reason, just to make sure that everything that he wants to say is as blatantly spelled out as possible. Happiness squandered was painful to look at from the future. It is all the time we were being fed those vague promises of something terrible happening. Now at page 177, and it started literally from page 1 basically, that we are learning that Wilbur will screw up everything, and I'm just not seeing it. Like, I need to get something. I can't just be like, this feels like in the early 2000s, those social media posts that people would be saying like, I had a bad day, and then when somebody asks what was happening, like, oh, I can't talk about this. Like, I hated this when I was going to school, and people would be writing those statements about something that they didn't want to talk about just to like get engagement or something, and this feels exactly the same way. It's just those platitudes that are supposed to make the reader worry about what is about to happen, but me, it just annoys me, because I'm like, I know what you're trying to do, and it is failing for me. It's not making me want to know what the reason is that everything breaks down if you are just not giving me anything. And then I will just get it all in one chapter spelled out to me. I want to be able to get to the point before the author decides to tell it to me. That's what excites me. That's what shows me there was some control over the story, over the plot, over how it develops, and not that I'm just being told, ooh, something is coming, but I can't tell you what. And then they will just tell you flat out, spelling out everything. And I worry that this will happen, that there will be one chapter where suddenly everything was explained. Just like with the brother's death, we were told like there's one event that changed his life, and then everything happened in one chapter where the brother died in an accident, which also came a little bit out of the blue, that he like came from prison. We didn't even know that he went to prison. So we learned that he was a criminal, but a petty thief. He just stole like some knives and forks or something. Then he went to prison for a few months. Then he came out. He was aggressive on a concert, overreacted, and then died. And everything in a span of a chapter. While before that, we spent 20 chapters saying that, oh, this moment changes everything. And all it changes is that Wilbur didn't go to Oxford. And now he's still happy. Now he's still getting the girl of his dreams. He is succeeding financially. So it is, man, is it again the Midnight Library just teaching us that you are living the best life that you can, and that there is nothing you can change about this? If this again is the same lesson that we are learning that was so blatantly forced down our throat in the Midnight Library, I'm throwing this book through the window, seriously. But let's not jump to conclusions. We still have 130 pages left. We just arrived in Venice. This should be the best part of the story, I think. At least that's how I feel the story was laid out. That Venice is where everything comes together. And here I think also we will be then having the dead Wilbur actually interfering with the past Wilbur, and then we will see what happens. And maybe there will be like something big in the last 100 pages. Who knows? Let's get back to reading and see. I will let you know in a dozen or so pages. I'm really sick and tired of being told over and over again that Wilbur is grieving and that he's struggling with the grief, but not seeing any of this. He's having the time of his life in Venice right now. His job is going great. But here and there, then the ghost just sprinkles in a sentence or two telling us that he's grieving, that he can still be happy even though he's grieving, and he can still have ambitions even though he's grieving, and he can still be spontaneous even though he's grieving. But I don't see any of the grief. I only see Wilbur living the life that I'm happy for him that he's living, because yes, it is tough. He never met his dad. His mother is a drunk and pill addict. His brother died next to him in a car chase with the police. That is a tough upbringing. I get this. And if it were shown to me, he would gain all the struggles that he supposedly has. But it is only being told to me, and not even by him or by people around him, but by a version of him from the future that visited him in the past now. Maybe I'm just too harsh on this, but there is something to the show don't tell. It is not just something that we are telling writers that it is important, because it is taking you out of the story. There are two stories going on within the narrative. The one that you see, the one that the characters are living, and then the one that some other character outside of the actual narrative is trying to force onto the story. There's this constant friction between what I see on the page and what I'm being told I should be seeing on the page, which takes me out of the story. And for me, this is just shows me that this is another book written with a message in mind, an idea that you want to present to the reader, not caring about the nuances of the characters, not caring how you want to present it. The most important thing is the message, and you have to give it to the reader no matter how, even if it's in the most clunkiest and unsatisfying way possible. I really feel this is coming out to be a version of the story where it says family is the most important thing. And yes, of course, family is the most important thing. But there are nuances to stuff, and I'm not sure that Matt Haig is able to write in nuances. Granted, I only read The Midnight Library before, and that had like zero nuances. It was so devoid of nuances that it sickened me. But this is where I fear this book is also going to. That he will make a decision for work or something, and he will break up with his friend Charlie, who's working for him right now, because they will have like a discourse about the business. He will decline some offer from Maggie, or tell her always later, or not now, I have to do this on the work stuff. And he will tell himself that he's doing it for her. I don't know if they will have a family. They didn't have a child yet. So he will always tell himself that he's doing it for her, just to then lose her at the end. And then he will learn that he was supposed to give up everything to be with the love of his life in the moment. I fear that this will be the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from this book. And if so, then it is exactly the book that I expected it to be. But we have another 100 pages to go, so let's see if my fears will come true or if I will get surprised positively. Yeah, like literally the next sentence, it talks about him putting all his work into the bookstore. That he is like the manager of the booming Bagdale bookshop, and one day it would be turned into a successful chain of bookshops under the name Bud Books. Oh my god, I swear to you, I have not read the sentence ahead. Literally, here is the part I was just talking about that annoyed me so much, and here they are talking about him doing too much for work. Like, this is so obvious where this book is going. It is not funny anymore. That's why I'm like, please surprise me. Please shock me in some crazy turn that you are not going there where you are projecting to go there, because it will just be as disappointing as I expected it to be. Yeah, look at this here. It says, you need to keep hold of this. The ghost is whispering Wilbur in the ear. You need to keep hold of this. It is so clear this is where it's going. It will be old Wilbur screaming from the outside, like Interstellar, right? We're like, no, don't go, stay. Your future self will look at your past self saying that, no, you are making the wrong decision. Stay with your family, care for your family. Do not do the big work thing that you think will help your family. What you should do instead is give up everything, move to Venice, and just love your wife. I'm telling you, this is where it's going. This is getting the red underline and the orange posted for bad writing. And you see I have a lot of orange stuff already here. You need to keep hold of this feeling, Wilbur. Can you hear me? Because soon after you get home, it's all going to go to shit. Because you'll be scared again of scarcity, even though you already own a successful business. Of your nightmares starting again. You will become scared of loving Maggie with your whole heart. But you need to, because she's the best thing that would ever happen to you. Oh my god. Okay. All right. At the end of the chapter, we are back at the beginning of the book where Wilbur sees the ghost. So now we are in the ghost perspective, and Wilbur sees the ghost. And Ghost Wilbur decides to stay. He's not going back on the train. Let's see where this is going. Please be the crazy left turn that I want you to be, and not just be the confirmation of my biggest fears. The next chapter is called The Rialto Bridge and the Quantum Wave Function. So Matt Haig is going back into quantum stuff. There was him saying in an interview that he really went into quantum mechanics for the Midnight Library and everything, and wanted to implement this into the book in a way that it's understood easily for everyone. So I'm looking forward to getting his next physics lesson, I guess. Let's see. The quantum wave function meant everything was eternal and infinitely viable. Death made things a bit wobbly. It made different possibilities exist on top of each other. Miss Graham was trying to tell him this. Sometimes you had to break the rules in order to live. We are getting naughty here. If I read one more time Miss Agnes saying, because as I told you, or as you know, or what I said before, like she is starting every other sentence with, as I told you, as you know, it's annoying. Agnes sighed. I know how, like, Wilbur is now explaining quantum physics to Agnes, and Agnes sighs. I know how it works. As I said, I was giving the knowledge of the universe when I opted to help you. I'm telling you, 50% of what she's saying is just, as I said. I've never felt so insulted by a book as a reader. That the author thought I'm such an idiot that I need to hear everything 4, 5, 6 times, and they still don't believe me that I can memorize something I read 10 pages ago or understand something that is just implied. It's crazy how little trust Matt Haig has into the readers of his book. Maybe that's why this book was so successful, because it is just the most basic stuff in the most easiest way, and it makes stupid people feel intelligent for getting it, because there is nothing to get. It is just flat out said the way it's supposed to be understood. There is no nuance in the Midnight Library, and sadly also in the Midnight Train. Oh dear, said Agnes, shaking her head. I've told you about the rules. I've told you of their importance. It's not hard. You get on a train, you don't meddle, and you don't see yourself asleep. 1, 2, 3, that's it. I told you. As I said. As you know. This is the 4th page in a row where I'm just being told stuff that I already know. I'm so annoyed I'm forgetting to annotate. Wilbur just told Maggie that he will be taking the loan that he was offered to open a second location of the bookstore, which then will start building his bookshop empire. And while reading this, in the back of my mind, I was just waiting for the ghost to come in and say like, oh, you fool, you made the wrong decision, or something like that. And here we have like Maggie's face was expressionless for a moment. It's a big undertaking. I mean, you were just talking about moving to Venice. I just don't want it to take us away from each other. And then he says, I won't. And then of course the ghost sigh, you are a fool and a liar, Wilbur. Oh my God, it's so predictable. Yes, and then if anything, Wilbur went on, if it be the opposite. At the moment I'm working long hours at Backdale's. If I accept the offer, we'll have financial resources. Well, we'll be able to grow and hire more staff and become a proper operation across 2 shops. Set up the template and let the shop run themselves. Look, Maggie, most of my life I was poor. My entire childhood I was poor. I had holes in my shoes and I was hungry, and I saw my mom counting out farthings on the kitchen table to pay Mr. Parkin the rent. If I go for this, it means we'll never have to have those worries. Didn't I just say that he will go for the job, saying that it is for the family, that it is good for them, and then we will learn at the end that all those decisions were wrong? So predictable. I wouldn't lie if I say it didn't feel good to know that I was not wrong about this book when I picked it up. I'm not expecting much to change for the last 100 pages, but for some reason there's a kind of excitement that I usually don't have for a book, because I'm not one to hate read books. But now I just want to get all my bad thoughts about this book confirmed and just be delighted by being able to predict everything from a book that I had no idea about and only read one book prior from an author. That's kind of nice. And of course the ghost is just commenting like, financial resources, echoed the ghost. Such a romantic phrase for your honeymoon. Alright, so we did just take a little bit of a turn, which I appreciate. The ghost Wilbur stayed in Venice. He didn't go back to the train, and he waited until the past Wilbur fell asleep, which, as we know, the way Agnes likes to tell, as you know, as I told you, is one of the rules that they are not supposed to break. You are not supposed to see yourself fall asleep. And what happens when you fall asleep is that the past you then is transported into your world. So now the past Wilbur, which they call the dreamer, and the old dead Wilbur, which they always call the ghost, are together on the train, riding the train along with Agnes also. So now the past Wilbur, the dreamer, is a passenger on the train that will be going through his own future, and that's how he will then learn about everything going on in his life. And this is, I guess, the risk that there was, that once you know your life, you cannot live it anymore, because once you have the knowledge, that's also where the quantum mechanics come, the observer effect, right? So deep. So once you know the answer, once you know your life, you cannot really live it without wanting to change something, because you are aware of everything. And that's where then the lives diverge, and that's why the ghost, the dead Wilbur, will no longer have eternity, because he will basically be erased from the universe or whatever it is where the train is going on, because his life no longer exists, since the life he was based on changed due to the past Wilbur knowing his future and adjusting his life. I find that's actually a clever reasoning why they should not meet. And 100 pages still left, less than 100 pages. So let's see where this is going, and hopefully it will be a little bit more interesting, because the transition now to the train was quite nicely done. The way it all faded out from Venice and they appeared on the station, and how the ghost explained the situation to Wilbur, the times he whispered into his ears, making him believe that it is not just a dream. That was done nicely. So I'm not just shitting on this book. When it's not done nicely, then I'm also here to praise it. And as I said at the beginning of the commentary, I want this to be a nice book, because who wants to read a bad book? We all want to read nice books. I would say my hope level went up from 3 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10. Maybe scratching at a 6 out of 10 a little bit, because there is still potential. I still believe the lessons that it wants to teach us will be the same, and it will be disappointing, but maybe the way we get to the disappointing ending will be exciting at least. So the dreamer and the ghost are now on the train, and we are being told that Ghost now realizes how he wanted to just become money, become a sign above his shop, become a business, transcend himself rather than being the man he was. So it is moving towards the resolution that family is important, living is important, work is not important. That is what I'm expecting. And then they are starting to have a discussion. And the ghost is already telling past Wilbur that, yeah, sure, making money is a good thing, but there are different ways you can betray yourself. So the preaching starts. Baggy's being pulled up as an example that, yeah, thievery and stealing, that's a way that you can betray. But there are also other ways, and then he doesn't tell him what those are and just says, we betrayed ourselves. So even to himself, the person who wants to teach a lesson, he is keeping secrets away so that the reader is never in any way ahead to the characters in the story. So just forcing us to be in the suspense. And then he drops the bomb that he will fall out of love with Maggie, because love slows him down. So he can't create his business, he can't make more money. But slowing down is what he should have done to save his marriage and not just pursue material possessions. The ghost sees this now as the opportunity to make his life better and giving his past self a chance at a happy life, even if it means that he will doom himself to never being able to enter eternity. Let's see how that goes. We also learned that at peak, he had 203 bookshops. So this was a huge operation. Yeah. He will be rich and famous and win awards. He will pursue making money so much that he will no longer care for books or readers, and later on also no longer care for Maggie. So it's full on just preaching the lessons that we are supposed to learn from this. So they're also moving to London because the business is going so well. Of course, Maggie is not happy, but Wilbur is ignoring that. Now we are in the phase where we are just doing everything to show what a dick Wilbur is, and that he just thought of himself that he only was interested in money and in success, and no longer was looking out for the people he loved. His mother is better now, but now they are moving away. I'm sure we will have a mention in a chapter or two that she's back to drinking or back to the medication, or even worse, maybe will have died. And then Maggie probably will be utterly joyless when they arrive in London. At least that's what I'm assuming will happen, because we had a talk earlier about how she felt like she didn't belong. And I'm sure this will not change it, because Wilbur will be always away. He will be always working. He is already saying that he's working every hour God sends. So he will be gone. She will be alone. She will feel neglected. And that will then lead her to write the letter from earlier in the book, which Wilbur found right before he died. There, she will then let him all know that she was all alone, and that's why she's leaving. And I'm sure she will just move back up north or something. Yeah, and here, flat out, it's being said, the mother is talking about him when he tells her that they are moving to London, and she says, well, if it makes you happy. And then he says, it's not about that, Mom. So it's not about being happy. And Maggie tries to push him back, like, why can't it be about happiness? And he said, it's business. I have a real shot here of creating something truly special, of changing the British high street forever. Just making us realize that, yeah, he made all the wrong decisions, according to the writer here. I'm missing the nuance. He was considerate of others earlier in the book. He didn't go to Oxford, his dream college, to stay with his mom, to take care of her. He was loving Maggie for so long from afar before they got together. And now he's just money obsessed. I don't buy it that much, because there was like too much pain in him and fear of being alone and knowing that Dougie and his mom both feel betrayed by him. So now he doesn't get this, that he is doing the exact same thing. That is unlikely, I would say. I get the one thing that his mother told him that he was a burden. So maybe now he thinks that the more money he brings, he will be less of a burden. So I get this point. This could still work out that way. It's still a big shift of his character. Yeah, and the mother also tells him flat out, there are more important things than business. And she just mentioned is that she will be leaving in because she knows when she's a burden. Like, I swear I'm not reading ahead in the book. It is just so obvious what is happening that I can predict the next page, the next 2 pages whenever I'm reading something. For the last 50 pages or so, it is all just falling into place where you would expect it to fall into. And now she's also mentioning Dougie, which I also just mentioned, saying that Dougie was right, he's always running away from everyone. So yeah, that was the issue that he knew that they had with him, and now he's doing it and he's not realizing it. Okay, I think I really need to stop the in-between commentary because I'm just repeating myself right after I then already predicted what will happen in the story. So Wilbert's mother just died from an aneurysm 3 years apparently after they moved to London. He didn't have a real conversation with her since he told them that they moved to London. He was just jetting along the world, opening branches in Scotland, New York, around the UK and all over. So he was just working all alone, never with Maggie, never with the mother. More of him just presumably wasting time on creating his business. And I'm like talking about this as if I'm not agreeing with this as well. Like, I'm also don't think that money and economic success is everything and you should prioritize your family. But what I'm criticizing is the lack of nuance, the change of character, the inability to try to create a person that feels real, who would consider others if that is all he was always doing, and being afraid that he is not considered enough to then just become the worst person that he could be, that he himself feared that he would become. There's a lack of development that allows me to understand and to fully buy the transformation that we are seeing on the page right now. It feels more so that we need Wilbur to be now this materialistic, cold-hearted businessman, so that the lessons that we are supposed to learn work within the themes that are put into place by the author. I'm just giving so many examples because this is this pace of how we are being force-fed right now. The ugliness of Wilbur. Even while giving the eulogy, he is commenting himself how terrible the eulogy is, and he is not used to actually talking to humans and is only giving speeches about quarterly earnings and presentations and boardrooms, and he's great at that, but he cannot, for the love of God, talk like a normal human anymore. Now we are learning that he's basically turning into a machine that is completely emotionless and incapable of regular human interactions. All will be leading to the fact that Maggie then will leave him. Hey, so Maggie is pregnant, and in the next sentence we already are being told that Wilbur will do everything to not be home, to not need to help out. So a little bit of happiness and then cutting it down already, making sure that we know that Wilbur is not a good guy. And 2 pages later, already Maggie has lost the baby. Very fast turnaround on everything. It was to expect it because we didn't see Wilbur with any baby in the future. When he was old, he never mentioned a child. But here, I don't know, I appreciate the speediness of this. Saying that she is pregnant, then telling us that he was never there for her to help her, and him then being in New York, so far away from London because he traveled to New York before that, and then just being called in the middle of the night England time that apparently she's bleeding and she has probably lost the baby. That is the strongest gut punch yet for me in the story. Not the ghost telling the dreamer Wilbur that his decisions are bad, but this actually is showing us that his decisions are bad. We go from him saying that is the happiest moment to then, okay, once being told that he was never there, to 2 pages later in a chapter about the death of John Lennon, not even about the baby. So again, in the side note, we are being told that they lost the baby. This has a lot more weight than the past 20 pages where we are being just told by the ghost Wilbur that he was a selfish man. Here we are seeing that he's a selfish man, and we are seeing what it means to be a selfish man and not caring for the people closest to you. This is how a book should be written in general. That is what makes a book more effective. That is what actually gives it the weight, and not us being told what we are supposed to think, but us coming to the conclusion. I'm not sure, maybe he will let us know in 5 pages that, yeah, because you were gone, that is why. Maybe it will be terrible, I will let you know, but at least right now I don't feel for the first time like an absolute idiot, or like somebody who is being treated as if I were an idiot, where I need to be spelled out everything. Okay, 1 paragraph later, we have the ghost ask, where was I when she needed me? I'm saying that She had just spent the last hour on her own cleaning blood off her skin and the new bathroom floor, and I'm here 4,000 miles away preparing a speech I didn't need to give in a hotel with a plush carpet and embroidered dressing gowns. So not feeling like an idiot worked out for one paragraph, and then we are already being told again, yes, Wilbur, you are selfish and you should be with your wife instead of being far away when she is alone and miscarrying your baby. This is already a short book. This is 300 pages and there's a lot of margins. The text is quite large and it could easily have been like 100 pages less. Things are just being repeated over and over and over again, over explained, and oh my. And then of course the present, like the dreamer will ask him, but I wouldn't have known. How could I have known? And the ghost shook his hand as if he was missing the point. It was just a pointless business trip. I didn't even need to go. I don't know. If this was isolated, it would be silly to beat myself up, but I found it easier to head away than be home. We didn't have any butt books in America. Yes, I thought I might be able to expand it eventually, but that wasn't why I went. I went because... Oh, sorry. Moshi moshi. Hai, wakarimashita. Arigatou gozaimasu. Ikimasu. Hai. Hai, onegaishimasu. All right, I need to get my dog. She was in doggy daycare and doggy school, and I guess I will be reading later, but yeah, so it was a pointless business trip. I didn't need to go. We didn't have any butt books in America. Yes, I thought I might be able to expand it eventually, but that wasn't why I went. I went because I was flattered to be asked. The North American Book Business Convention 1980, all expenses paid. Maggie never told me she didn't want me to go. She would never have done that, but she hadn't had an evening with me for weeks, maybe months. She wasn't against me being in New York. If that was all it had been, I was just yet another thing, an utterly pointless thing, and I knew it. She wanted me with her. I was like, she knew, but I had a choice. I had the choice, and look, here I am making the wrong one. Thank you, Wilbur, for spilling out literally everything and not leaving the reader come to anything on their own. And of course, the Wilbur even makes it worse. Like, I can't fly back till Thursday. I've committed. The speech is tomorrow. I can't not be there. I wish I could hug you too. I love you. Yeah, so Wilbur is a dick. The past Wilbur and the present Wilbur are looking at him with horror. Interestingly enough, like think about this, okay? The dreamer Wilbur is this Wilbur basically. He is on the path of wanting to become the successful Wilbur. But even he is seeing what a terrible human being he is. So why is he so different from the Wilbur that he wanted to become? And now he is seeing that everything. But when he was living this, he couldn't see it. Do you see what I mean about there is no coherent logic to how Wilbur became from the person who is observant and sees other people's emotions and sees his effect on other people to become that cold-hearted businessman who doesn't care about anything but opening bookstores. Because even the person that is from the past looking into the future that he wants realizes that it is not actually a good thing to want that. So actually then in reality the Wilbur that has all those bookstores would have had the same thoughts. He would also think about wanting to take care of his wife, his mother, his friends, family and everything, and not just look at the bookstore, because that is his thinking before he even had the bookstore. And then it is his thinking after he died. So both sides know that everything that Wilbur is doing is wrong, except for the Wilbur that is in the middle of it, which at what point is the transition? Because I don't see any. Wilbur, the one that we are following with the train, is a completely different character than the two Wilburs that are on the train right now looking at him. This is basically just poorly written because they are having one character living two different lives without any connection, and we are supposed to be on the side of the Wilburs on the train who are the same Wilbur outside of the train who is for some reason way stupider than the Wilburs on the train. So we are 3 years later after the miscarriage, and Wilbur is meeting with Charlie. Charlie has changed, he's losing his hair, and he's recommending TV shows and books to him, and Wilbur's just saying that he doesn't have time for any of that. Also no music, anything about work. So I'm assuming this will be the chapter now where the friendship between Charlie and Wilbur is breaking apart, and let's see how Wilbur has messed that up again, because 100% it will be Wilbur's fault that they're no longer friends. Holy shit. Wilbur just fired Charlie right before they will make it big. So maybe Charlie took it a little bit personal that he helped him build his empire and then he got fired. 10 years apparently he worked for him, and out of the blue he got fired. Again, just Wilbur lacking any bit of empathy. And on the train, the past Wilbur is looking at his future, not believing what is happening. Together with his future self looking at the past, also cringing at what an asshole he was. Quite a disconnect here. That Wilbur throughout past and future sees everything wrong, but for some reason in the present he is just hell-bent on destroying all and every relationships that he has. Here's just half a page of a chapter where Wilbur is a dick to an unhoused man. What is this scene for? Just to make us think that Wilbur is even more of a dick than he is? I'm getting it. I get it, yes. The Wilbur we are seeing through the train windows is a terrible human. And then we get this as the next chapter. 3 lines. Let me read you the entire chapter. The incredibly annoying thing about being dead was that you got all your priorities in order, just when it was too late to do anything about them. I don't know how much more I can take of this pandering and just this grandstanding and telling me over and over and over again what I'm supposed to think and what I'm supposed to learn from this. This now feels, I am a proponent of fiction over non-fiction. If you can follow and learn lessons through experiencing the life of another character, you will internalize those lessons way more. This is for me now a non-fiction book cosplaying a fiction book, because now it's basically just the author telling us what we are supposed to think, his thoughts, his ideas, his, let's call it quote-unquote expertise that he wants to share, but in a fiction form. So he's just padding out his lessons with mediocre stories in between. This is how the last 50 pages are feeling, and I fear that the last 50 pages will be just more of the same thing. Matt Haig trying to give us his understanding of the world masqueraded as a fiction story, but it lacks entirely everything in character, in writing, in nuance. It's so blatantly just his personal worldview put on the page for us to consume. Okay, back again. Here's the 3 lines I just read stating what Matt Haig wants us to learn. Then we are getting one short chapter again about Wilbur taking over other bookstores, underpricing them, kicking them out, and not caring that people are losing their livelihood. And he's getting an award for this. And apparently Maggie found like a lump, so I'm assuming she has cancer or something. We will see. And then on the very next page, Wilbur, the ghost Wilbur, is telling the dreaming Wilbur what we just read here on this page, that now that he's dead, he knows about his life, and the dreaming Wilbur, when he awakes, can take the wisdom that he had from his lifetime to change his life. So here we are getting it straight up told by the author to us. Then half a page later, we have the characters talking about the same point again. You see what I'm getting at? It is constant, and it is so bad. It's so bad. And now Wilbur is firing Maggie, who was doing graphic design for them. So just more Wilbur being a dick. This book has the subtlety of an elephant in a china store. It is ridiculous how it forces a worldview down your throat against your will that you are trying desperately to fight against, but over and over, chapter after chapter, paragraph after paragraph, Matt Haig is doing nothing to move along the story, and he's only interested in making you believe what he thinks is the one true way to live a fulfilling life. Hey, at least we just learned that Maggie did not have cancer. It was benign. And she was at the doctor today, and of course Wilbur forgot it. Because, yeah, let's make him the worst person ever. Imagine this life, because we are seeing only little scenes, right? But if they have always this conversation, I'm surprised that Maggie stayed so long with him. Like, apparently she thought she had cancer for a month. She went to the doctor, where it turned out it's not cancer, but he forgot that she was going to the doctor. She tried to tell him that it looked ominous and she should prepare for the worst. Then he says she didn't tell him that. But then she, of course, says that yes, she did tell him the day before and also 2 days ago. And then also on the day where they were supposed to go to a restaurant on an anniversary, which he then had to cancel because he had to work. If this is your life, how are you still together? If this man took everything from you, how have you been with him for what seemed to be at least 20 years? That's crazy. So I guess Matt Haig, still the master of not understanding women at all and making them just so hopeless. Like, Maggie is not getting much in this story, and what she's getting is her still being utterly reliant on a man, not being able to really think for herself, and just being interested in keeping the status quo alive and hoping that it will turn out better, hoping that the man that she chained herself to will turn out to be a man she can live with. Instead of being a fully fledged character who is out there fighting for her own wishes and dreams and aspirations, she's only there to show to the reader what a dick Wilbur is. She's only there to be hurt by him. She's only there as a projection of his incompetence. She's a prop, and I guess there was nothing else we could expect from Matt Haig in relations to female characters, because he is apparently utterly incapable of writing realistic human women. It's crazy how terrible he is making Maggie look like. Even if they were trapped in a relationship, the way she is still reacting, talking to him, is so submissive. She might talk shortly about a feeling that she had or a thought that goes against Wilbur's wishes, but then she is quickly to just shove down anything that she wants away to follow his lead, no matter how terrible she thinks it might be. It's very sad. Even just a few scenes where we have female characters, Matt Haig managed to make them absolutely incompetent and just pawns for the men in the story to be played with. It is very sad how he is completely disrespecting any female character in his stories. I get that Maggie is not happy with the situation, but she is not doing anything. She is utterly passive. So it is clear to me that she's only there to make it easier on Matt Haig to show us how terrible Wilbur is, and to then give us his life lesson that you should be more concerned with your family and friends than work and material possessions. That's the only reason why Maggie comes up in those stories. Like here, for example, they have an argument because they are tearing down some movie theater that is important to Maggie back in their hometown, and she is trying to share her thoughts about that she's sad about this and that she thinks it is all capitalism's fault. And you are on her side, but then she's undermining herself by just saying something like, I don't know, I'm just tired, I'm just being unreasonable. And Wilbur directly saying, yes, I can see that. You see what I mean? We are going to a point where it gets hard to argue against anything that Maggie is standing for, where we can see that the story then needs to go further. She needs to leave him. She needs to try to be more agentic in her own life, just for herself then to pull back, to stop us in the track so that we can then again be preached to. And right in the next scene, we have the ghost talking to the dreamer about what a dick he was in this situation. And of course the metaphors are coming, and the movie theater that's getting knocked down to create a shopping mall will have Sheffield's second Butt Books location. So yes, Wilbur's creation is knocking down the things that are important to his wife. Matt Haig is a lot of things, but he is definitely not subtle in his metaphors. And then now she drops the bomb that her father has Parkinson's and she wants to move back, and Wilbur is just thinking about himself. The company is having an IPO, he can't move back, he needs to stay in London. Yes, it all does the work to see that that Wilbur is putting the wrong focus in his life, that there are things more important that he should have been focusing on now that he can look back at things. But there are better ways to write about this. There are better ways, instead of just having plucked out scenes from the life of this man where he is just being confronted by other characters about his shortcomings, and him never, not once ever, thinking of other people. Like, oh shit, Matt Haig, little bit commentary on the critique of the Midnight Library, I guess. Maggie here in this scene, they're having a big fight where she's telling Wilbur everything that is on her mind now, how he's just focused on work, how he breaks all the problems that they had when they were teenagers, when they were younger, when they were in their 20s, how now he's only focused on working more and expanding his business, and in the past they were just happy sitting together on a bench. And then she mentions that she's not fitting here in London, as I mentioned before, that I assumed this would be an issue when they moved to London, that she will not be fitting here. Now she's also not fitting back home because she's too rich, but she mentions also that here the people around here wonder why we don't have kids. Like, that was my only function. Like, life is just a pre-designed plan and I haven't followed it. So this is a big critique point of the Midnight Library, that the main protagonist went through so many iterations of her life, and in the end we were told that she is the happiest in the only one iteration of her life where she was a mother, and that was the only time that she didn't feel like it was a failure of her life. And now we have a little bit here where Maggie is going against that lesson, where, I don't know, maybe something stuck with Matt Haig and the critique on the Midnight Library, because she's flat out saying this. She's hating how the people around her think her only reason to exist is to be a mother. That's at least a little bit of self-reflection in a book lacking entirely any nuance. So that is a welcome change of pace for once. Hey, Maggie is doing something. She is going to Sheffield, with him or without him. Good for you, Maggie. Good to see, even if it's barely at the end of the book, at least a little bit. That's ironic. We are back in the train and the Ghost and Dreaming Wilbur are having a conversation, and Ghost Wilbur is trying to lecture Dreaming Wilbur, and the dreamer says, yes, well, I don't always need a commentary. Sometimes I can work things out for myself. Sometimes you can come across a little, I don't know, pompous. You don't say, Matt Haig. So you do know what it means to just beat somebody over and over and over with the same lesson until they feel like it is too much. But that's exactly how I feel reading this book. But then the dead Wilbur says, I'm dead. It's impossible not to be pompous when you are dead. Being dead is an incredibly pompous thing because after you die, you know better, and I do know better. Is this a little bit of Matt Haig telling us that he knows better? Is he telling us that we should listen to him? Maybe not because he's dead, but because he lived a life where he learned those lessons and he's now teaching us? I'm probably reaching too much, but it is still a funny passage that the exact same issue I have reading his book is the issue that one of his characters in this book has with one of another character from this book. That's just ironic. If I were to ask you, what is the opposite of love? And it is not hate. Usually people say indifference, right? The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. According to Wilbur, the opposite of love is pointless ambition. We are just getting Wilbur telling himself, the younger Wilbur, that he just was afraid to lose Maggie after he lost Dougie and after he lost his mom. He also didn't want to lose Maggie. He just retreated into work. As he said, pointless ambition, the opposite of love. I've never heard anybody say that the opposite of love is pointless ambition. So it really is all just because he's grieving Dougie. That's all where all the issues stem from. I am not buying this. I am not buying that him losing his brother, yes, in an absolutely terrible manner in a car accident where he was also in the car, is what led him to become the person that he is. Because we did not see this at all before Dougie died. He even denied that Dougie is his brother. He was telling Maggie that he doesn't have a brother. He was ashamed of him. They were not close whatsoever. And then his death completely changed him so radically. I just don't buy it. It's just a convenient excuse for Matt Haig to have for why Wilbur turned out the way he is. But the book is not doing the work. It did not put down the foundation for this character change to make sense to me. Okay, so we are slowly catching up with Wilbur right before he starts to die, and he started taking piano lessons, the lessons he had right before he also had his heart attack or whatever it was that killed him. And he's talking with his piano teacher, and she's opening up to him, telling him that at one point she tried to take her own life, but then realized that it was a good thing that she did, because it was an experience that made her see things differently. She realized that if you aim to be something you are not, you will fail. So I had to be who I was. The only way to learn is to live. It's as simple as that. And this is basically, again, the same lesson from the Midnight Library, that you just have to live your life. You only have the one life you can live, and it is the best life you can live. And it makes no sense to try to second guess it or find another life and be just happy with what you have. It's the same book, again, just from another perspective. It just occurred to me that Wilbur's life is basically one of those failed lives that the protagonist from the Midnight Library went through and would then decide that it is not a life worth living to get back to the library. And now then I guess the life that the dreamer Wilbur will have when he wakes up will be the actually good life. So we are basically living in one of those negative scenarios that we saw so many in the Midnight Library. The Midnight Train is one of those scenarios stretched to an entire book, and our main character is one of those failed versions of the real protagonist. I hope I make sense here. I need to check what the name of the character is from the Midnight Library. I'm always just calling her the main character or the MC. It's Nora. Nora is the name of the main character from the Midnight Library. So at least for the last 30 pages, I can call her by the name if I'm talking about the Midnight Library again. The piano teacher is called Nora. Oh my god, is Nora in the Midnight Library a piano teacher and I just forgot? Oh, I need to check this for a second. What? 19 years later? Holy shit. Holy fuck. I just realized I did not get this. The piano teacher in the Midnight Train is Nora, who is our main character from the Midnight Library. I just opened this up and she was giving lessons to somebody. Okay, does this change the story? I don't think so. It's just cute that we have the crossover from the character. Okay, but it doesn't change anything so far. If I come up with something that it changes, I will. Okay, wow. Good thing I checked up on her name, and now here we have, "Are you okay?" Nora asked. Her face was pure concern when Wilbur was feeling some tingling in his chest. So, okay, it's the same Nora from the Midnight Library. And that's why she's, oh my god, that's what I was just talking about, that this is the parallel to the Midnight Library. She's literally telling him the story. Oh my god, yes, okay. It's okay. I was actually good. Like, she tells him that she tried to take her life, and and one night I didn't think I could go on, so I tried to take my life, and I came very close, to doing it. Wilbur was genuinely upset. I had no idea. It's okay. It was actually good in the end. On the edge of death, I had an experience that made me see things differently. She took a breath. I realized that somewhere out there, I was all the things I wasn't. And I realized that if you aim to be something you are not, you will fail. So I had to be who I was. The only way to learn is to live. It's as simple as that. The only way to learn is to live, echoed Wilbur, almost in whisper. So the Nora in the story is Nora from the Midnight Library, who already went through her time at the library and decided to live the life that she thought was not worth living. And now she is teaching Wilbur the same lesson. Okay. Now she's telling him that he should not feel bad about regretting his life, and that he could not know if anything would have been better if he had known what his life will turn out. Oh man, this is what a coincidence that in this moment I felt the need to check the name of the main character in the Midnight Library. This whole chapter is called Nora Seed, and it says, once he had finished, his piano teacher, Nora gave a little clap. So it is putting the spotlight on the name here. So this is the moment where people are like, oh, that's the same character from the book. I was just wondering right now if I maybe had missed it at the beginning of the story, but no. I actually, by coincidence, had that's the same character as everybody else that has read the Midnight Library and still remembered that Nora was the name and that she was a piano teacher. Okay. The only thing I was missing that probably a lot of people are already catching up before that she might have been the character that Nora was in the Midnight Library. Okay. I've been very hard on this book, and I don't know if it's the situation because I just also checked the name of the Midnight Library character, and then I learned that it's Nora, and then I read that it's Nora in this book. That's bumping up this book a little bit. But that's fun. That makes me enjoy at least this moment of the story, even though the rest is still a tough read. This one that's a fun happenstance that this happened all in the same moment for me here. But it also cheapens the story here that then we have Nora from the previous story giving our main character here now the lessons that she learned. So it is basically Matt Haig restating his worldview from the Midnight Library now also in the Midnight Train. It's a fun coincidence. I like the moment as it happened just now, but it cheapens the book even more than. At least I thought that Wilbur's learning those lessons by himself, but no. We again need a character from a previous book to tell him what he's supposed to learn here. Oh man, Wilbur is so phoning about Nora now. They're back on the train and saying that she understands herself at 42 years of age, whereas a double dead, and with the help of my own death, I'm still only just getting there. So Matt Haig is just doubling down that yes, what Nora learned in the Midnight Library and what he tried to teach his readers is the truth. It is really that good of a lesson to be learned that you should read two books about the same themes, about the same lesson. Oh man, that's so crazy that this is where he went with this, that he's forcing the Midnight Library onto us in his next book as well. So we just witnessed Wilbur's death through the train travel. We'll see how this now all gets together, because apparently usually this would have been the end of his travel and he would go into eternity. But since he broke the rule and brought the present Wilbur, the dreaming Wilbur, with him on the train, he changed his life. So there is no eternity for the life of the ghost Wilbur. Let's see where he will end up now, that he witnessed his own death outside of time in a universe that no longer exists. The ghost and the dreamer are both now standing in front of a door, and the ghost needs to go through his door first, and then the dreamer can go. We don't know where the ghost will end up, but we know he needs to go first so the dreamer can wake up. Let's see. Okay, so the ghost went through the door and he went into nothing, a void of nothing. But he had a smile on his face, and then the train just started going again before the dreamer could leave. Alright, it's turning into an action movie now. The train is going hard, tilting 45 degrees, people flying around, things getting broken. Okay, Agnes also gone. The train wanted to get rid of her. The train wants to save the dreaming Wilbur. Wilbur was holding onto her because she was flying through the train. He let go and she's gone. And then he woke up. He woke up in his soft bed. Wilbur opened up his eyes. He was lying in the bed in his hotel in Venice. Okay, he wakes up and he remembers the midnight train. He's unsure if it was a dream or if it was real, but he remembers at least everything. Maggie came out of the bath in her underwear, trying to choose a dress to go out at night, and she picks a dress that Wilbur was expecting because he already saw her in that long blue dress. I guess it is confirmed for him now that his dream was not a dream but reality. Let's see what he does with that life, with the knowledge of his future. And here we are getting the confirmation. In the evening they went to the restaurant that he also saw from the train, and he decided to believe because there are too many coincidences that he saw from the train, and this is now his life. He is aware of his future and that he can change things. And here now, right in the next scene, he already decides that he will not take the bank loan to expand the bookshop, to open another location. He also doesn't even change the name of the bookshop. So he completely gave up every ambitions instantly. Like, I get this. Okay, he doesn't want to end up where he ended up, right? He doesn't want her to leave him, to lose all his friends, to just be absorbed by work. There doesn't have to be those two extremes. This is this black and white thinking, again, from also the Midnight Library that you see now in the Midnight Train, again, that Matt Haig is giving us, that you should just take the life that you have, that you should be happy with what you got, that you should not have ambitions. Because if you have ambitions, then it will destroy you and it will make your life miserable. That's not the two options. There is so much in between those two things of just accepting the situation that you are in and not wanting to improve it out of fear, or going full extreme, being an egoistical asshole that is only interested in money and expanding your empire and ignoring everybody and everything else and completely lacking any empathy. There is a universe. There is so much between those two extremes, and I do not understand why we need to be forced to decide to either do nothing and be happy with our lives, or to completely destroy who we are in pursuit of some goal that will make us miserable. Those are not the only two options. You can have a very fulfilling life with a bookstore that is more successful, or maybe like a small chain of 5 bookstores or even 20 bookstores. Or you can just not fire your friend who is doing great work at your bookstore. Or maybe hire more people because your bookstore is going so well that you can then spend your time with your wife. Why do we need to go right to the extreme? Why can't he use some of his fortune to not be so hands-on? Just hire somebody else. Hire a CEO. Be just the president. Retire at 40 if you want to, and just use what you have, the knowledge now, the power that there is. You can shape your life now in a way where you have both, actually. You can have the success and you can still have the love and the compassion for other people. But he completely does a 180 here and throws out everything after waking up. Life is not that simple. And teaching people life lessons that can be hurtful. You are not allowed to change your situation, that you need to be happy with what you got. This is like capitalistic and feudalist talking, where you are telling people to just accept what they have. Some people, they are meant to be in the lower classes or in the middle classes, and some people are just meant to be in the upper classes and the leading classes. And you should never try to move up. You should never try to change your situation in hopes that you can better them. This is a terrible life lesson. If people are taking this, they will feel stuck in lives that could be improved without also destroying their lives. If you decide to improve your life, it doesn't mean that you need to go 100% full on and ignore everything else besides that. But you should improve your life. And this book is teaching us to just take what it is, to just be grateful what you got, because if you try to maybe change it, you will probably go crazy and lose all the people you love around yourself. But that is not how life works. You can live more comfortably and still be a good person, still be an empathetic person, still be nice to unhoused people on the street and not like hit them because they asked for some petty cash to get food for the night. You do not have to be either or. You can be somewhere in between. So here Wilbur is just saying out loud that everything is great and he will continue going on the way it is because now life's the best. He's marvelous. Italian food is marvelous. My wife's art is marvelous. Reading books is marvelous. I'm not going to stop reading. Everything's marvelous. Everything's perfect the way it is and nothing should change. But then there's one sentence. He will be nostalgic about the present. I like that one. We should be nostalgic about the present because who knows, maybe we are actually living in the good old days and we just don't know it yet. Yet it doesn't mean that I will not try to improve my life, because I can look back at where I've been 10 years ago and see that now is better, and I'm still nostalgic for the time because other parts of my life back then were important to me. And I still had the joy of my life when I was in my early 20s as well. Doesn't change the fact that I am now happier with where I got from that time back then. And just because I knew I could have made it worse, I did not just stay put in the hopes that I can be just as happy as I am, because then I would have missed out on being happier than I was back then. Like, there is nuance in everyone's life. You are not stuck in the life that you have been given. You can change without becoming a tyrant. Like, now he just turned down all the money, right? He had a blue plan for his life. He knows exactly where he went wrong, what the wrong decisions were, where he could change it. Now he's completely throwing this all out. Who is to say that in 40 years he will not look back and be eaten by the guilt that he did not use the knowledge that he had? He will look back and thinking what an idiot he was, that he was not using the golden ticket that he got to improve his life while not destroying his relationships along the way. Maybe the one shop that he has will now go down. Maybe another bookstore will do what he would have done otherwise and will open up next to him and underprice him until he goes out of business. And then he will also lose Maggie. In this case, not because he was too ambitious and she didn't have time for him, but because they have nothing and they are penniless, and he is maybe becoming a drunk, ridden with guilt that he had this opportunity to improve his life, but he didn't because he was afraid that he would lose her. You see where I'm getting at? This is not how anyone would react. This is Matt Haig again just forcing his beliefs onto the reader, his unhealthy belief. It is a good belief if you are already in the top echelon to know that yes, things are as they should be. You're at the right place in your life. But if you are not in a leading position, if you are somebody who is struggling and you are reading this book and this book is telling you, do not try, be happy with what you got, that is just a depressing lesson to take from this story. And it is again the same story like in the Midnight Library. I was going into this with very low expectations, and I was feeling the book a little bit at the start. I thought, yes, it is not great, but it will be at least not as bad as the Midnight Library. And now the last 100 pages, I had really high hopes when they started being on the train, the two Wilburs. But now the last 50 and especially the last 30 pages, and especially the last 2 chapters, it might be even worse than the Midnight Library, honestly. It is lacking the complete hate for women, but the lessons it's trying to teach its readers are still destructive. And Maggie is completely falling in love with him all over again. She is giving him everything to make him now feel like he's making all the right decisions. There is nothing wrong in the way he's thinking. It is so black and white. The patriarchy is still so dominant again in this book. It is not so overtly shown like in the Midnight Library with her being only happy when she was a mother and she should be happy in the position that she is. But the world that this book is building with the rigid structures that nobody is to move in the social hierarchy is so capitalistic, so patriarchic, so destructive that this book is at least as bad as the Midnight Library in its lessons again. Let's make it up as we go along. Okay, that was the Midnight Train. I think my thoughts were pretty clear in the last few chapters. Let me get my bearings and then let's talk about the whole book and see if there's anything redeeming about the story, because I worry this might be even worse than the Midnight Library, because the Midnight Library itself was already a very pondering and terrible book with terrible lessons, but the Midnight Train learned nothing from this and is even using Nora, the main character of the Midnight Library, as a teacher for our character in this book. So it is all the same things with even less nuance, I think, not giving us any different options and still making people think that they should just live the life they have and not hope for anything better and be happy with what they got, because who knows, maybe things can just turn out even worse. And I don't know, nobody needs to hear this, nobody needs to learn this, and nobody needs to live by this. I'm done for now. I need like a little bit of a cool down, and then I will be back where we can like talk about the entire book as a whole. Now that it is all done, let's talk about the book as a whole. I went in not expecting much. I knew what Matt Haig has done with the Midnight Library. I hated this book very much, so I was hoping that the Midnight Train would be an improvement, and it was for the first 250 out of the 300 pages, I would say. It started out more interesting. Time travel, I find in general more interesting than multiverse stuff. It had a coherent story because we just followed one life from birth till death. We met younger versions of the person that was our main character. They got into conflict, they learned from each other. All that is a strong foundation that could have been used to create something interesting, something that would make you want to seek out this book and see what lessons there can be learned. But Matt Haig did what Matt Haig does, and he shoved his worldview, his lessons so deep down our throat that unless you already are on the same wavelengths as him, you were starting to choke. For me, especially the last 50 pages were a disgrace, basically. Everything that I hated about the Midnight Library came back in the Midnight Train. We even had the character of the Midnight Library, Nora, come here and give our new main character, Wilbur, lessons that she learned. So this book, basically, in the last few chapters, was a rehash of the Midnight Library, that you never will know what life can bring, so you should not try to change the situation. Just live the life that you have, hope for the best, and it probably is the best that you can ever get. And for me, this is a lesson so dangerous and so deep into patriarchy that it is sickening almost. It just tells everybody that there is no worth investing time to change. People on the top are there because they deserve it. They are on the top because that is where they should be. You are on the bottom because that is where you belong. Do not try to change. You will probably just make your situation even worse. But then on the other hand also, we have the dead Wilbur, who then talks to the young Wilbur from the past. He talks him into changing his path in life. So there is a change, but it's a meta change. The change advertised here is insofar not that you will change your life or improve your life. It is a change insofar that you should give up your dreams of improving your life, because maybe you will screw things up. Maybe you will lose sight of what is really important in life, which based on this book is only family and love. And okay, this is the one thing. For me, love, family, friends, those are the things, the relationships that I have with other humans, people that are close to me, and society as a whole, those are what drive me. That's what's important to me. So I agree, but how to get to this conclusion is very different from person to person. I feel the way it is portrayed in The Midnight Train, that you should be content with what you have, to not risk breaking everything, is way too black and white in the view of things. There could have been so many changes in the Wilbur from the past, who then saw his future evolve. He could take every information that he had and just in the moment make the right decision. Still expand, still make yourself a name in the book selling world, but just don't be so cutthroat. Don't be such a dick to your best friend, to your wife. Don't stop talking to your mother. Do not try to go on business trips just to flee from your wife and from your responsibilities. You could still do everything. Yes, maybe you would not be a huge chain with, I think at the end, over 200 stores. Maybe you would have 100 stores. Maybe you would have 50 stores. Maybe you could just not take some of the profit home and instead hire somebody to lead the company, and you could be just the chairman or something. There were so many possibilities in the story, but they were all just squandered down to saying the one thing of do not change the status quo. Do not try to change what you have right now, because what you have right now is probably the best it would ever get. And that is not a lesson that I want anybody to hear. That is such a conservative, right-leaning, patriarchal lesson that it goes against every fiber in my being. I'm a very progressive, left-leaning millennial, and I'm not getting anything out of this. The book is also written in a way that it does not respect the reader's intelligence. Everything is repeated over and over again. Everything is spelled out. We have chapters following chapters that talk about the same thing. We have events happening in paragraphs where it is clear what the lesson is supposed to be. One example was for where Wilbur was a dickhead to an unhoused person. And then in the next paragraph already we have the two Wilburts that are on the train explaining to each other, but actually just to us, that this was a dick move. That you should not be an asshole to people who struggle, who live on the street and don't have much a need to ask for money. Another case was the funeral of Wilbur's mother. She died and he held a eulogy, and he made mistakes about what her favorite song is. He didn't know much about her life because he just cut her out after he became successful. Shortly after, we have again Wilbur saying, oh my god, that was such a terrible speech. I did not know anything about my mother. And then the young Wilbur says, how could you know, she cared so much for you and was always afraid that you will leave her, and then you obviously left her. And I was like, just give a little bit of credit to the reader. Sometimes I thought, okay, maybe this time it will work out. I talked about this in the main content of the video, where I was then explaining that I finally think that maybe Matt Haig gives a little bit of credit to the reader, just to then a paragraph or a chapter later, to get everything explained and spilled out. So this book, while short, it is under 300 pages, could easily have 100 pages cut, if not for all the explaining and making sure that everything is spelled out. It is a lecture cosplaying as a fiction book. This could have been an essay. This could have been an essay actually, because Matt Haig only wants you to know what he thinks a good life looks like and what the roles are for people in the world. And then he just put it in the package of a novel because it will sell better. Especially now after The Midnight Library, which sold over 10 million copies, still baffling to me. I'm afraid this one will be probably just as big of a hit, maybe not that. Even if it's just half of what it was, it is still way too many books that are being sold. So to just get everything together, I thought I will get into this and hate read it, but was hoping that maybe Matt Haig changed his ways a little bit, like learned a little bit from the critique that he got from the book. There also was this one scene with Maggie where I felt he had like a conversation with the Midnight Library, because she was complaining that the people around her, the posh people of London, only expected her to be a housewife and mother. She should not do art. She should only do business with art, so buy and sell art. But making art is not something that a lady would do. And they were all wondering why she had no kids. They expected her to be the housewife, the pretty thing next to the successful husband with as many children as possible. And she was rebelling against this. She said that she does not want this, and she is unhappy that the people around her expect this from her. And in this one moment, I thought Matt Haig had like a little bit of a conversation with the critique that the Midnight Library had. It was very pondering to the idea that a woman can only be happy if she is a mother. This was the only glimmer in the story that I thought was worth sharing. But then, of course, Nora from the Midnight Library is coming into the story to teach our main character. This glimmer that I had in this one paragraph, everything got lost again. So back to the final thoughts. I thought I would hate read it. I hope it would be better. It started out more interesting. The plot mechanics itself of time travel versus multiverse machinations is more interesting to me. I'm sure other people can disagree here. The main character was written somewhat better because at least Matt Haig didn't have to write a female character, which he is absolutely incapable of writing with any respect whatsoever. So just by writing the dude as the most boring man alive, he wrote him better than the insulting way that he wrote Nora in the Midnight Library. It got interesting when Wilbur went off the path and he decided to risk his eternity to give his past self a better life. But then all the lessons came in. The last 50 pages, it was just one chapter after another telling us that you should be happy with what you got, otherwise you will risk it all. And it was so black and white. There was no nuance into how you can just learn from parts of your situation and improve your life still while not being a person that everybody around you hates and just wants to leave. There was none of this nuance. If you stayed with this up until the end, first of all, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'm glad you had some enjoyment in the video here. But we are probably on the same wavelength here, so this is not worth reading. If you hate watching me, sure, go ahead, comment down below. Let me know what you see in this book, why you think it is good. Let me know if you also read The Midnight Library. What is it about that book because I'm assuming if you would like this story that you also like The Midnight Library. So please let me know what I am missing here, because maybe I am the one that has no clue. I do not think so, but there are over 10 million people who bought the previous book, and I'm sure based on the rave reviews and that he was to publish another book, most of those people who read that book also liked it. So please also let me maybe know then in the comments. But yeah, that is my thinking of the book. Thank you so much for sticking with this video. Please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth analysis of books that are worth talking about. The next one, I promise, will be something that we will enjoy reading and not something that we set out to hate read, and sadly also succeeded in this. And with that being said, let me also introduce myself for a second here. I'm Matthiot. I'm a literary fiction writer based in Japan, and I plan on talking about all the books that are sitting with us for a long time after we read the last line. Okay, that is, I still don't know yet how to end those videos. Again, like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. And thanks so much for sticking around, and I will see you in the next one. In his acknowledgement, he says the Midnight Library and the Midnight Trade are in a heated debate with each other about how best to live. For me, they are the exact same book.